Hey guys, KRX50 here with another review. This time I'll be reviewing the Henshin Seiken Deluxe Dogouken Gekido from Kamen Rider Saber. This is the Seiken of Kamen Rider Buster that he uses as both his transformation device and weapon, and includes his signature Wonder Ride book. So, let's get started. First up, we'll look at the included Genbu Xinghua or Genbu Mythos Wonder Ride book. So this one is a dark silver color, and as indicated by the marking down here, this is a Shinju or Divine Beast Wonder Ride book. So first we have the front cover, which has its name Genbu Xinghua, in this case written out in kanji rather than romanji, though it still does read out as Genbu Xinghua in the Wonder language. And so here it depicts Genbu or Xuanwu, the Black Tortoise of the North from Chinese mythology. And this is using the depiction of Genbu where it's a turtle or tortoise with a snake for a tail. So, we have the sounds it makes on its own, the title announcement, and the synopsis. And as usual, translations will be in the description. So, here we have the story page, which depicts the large image of Genbu, and does have some words written in the Wonder language. First of all, we have the title here. Then, you've got the segments that are labeled here as head, front leg, hind leg. Then all around the shell, it reads out shell. Next, we'll look at the Dogouken Gekido on its own. So, this is Buster's Seiken, which is this large gunmetal and orange sword. And as is fitting of his name, this is a Buster sword, similar to one used by Guts from Berserk or Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. Within it, you can see a lot of molding details, especially a lot of rivets to make it look like it was kind of assembled and screwed together. It actually has some of the Wonder language on the blade, and reads out Kyodai na daichi no ken o, or rather, Kyodai na daichi no ken de nagi harae, or swing away with the giant sword of earth, as is the earth elemental sword. We can see the place to put in Wonder Ride books here, as well as the reader section up here. You have the reader down here, and at the very bottom we have, well, Buster's symbol, which is basically his replacement for having an emblem like Saber or Blades. In this case it's chrome orange, and for his visor we have a cleaving slash where we have the blade slashing down here, and then two shockwaves spraying out to the side. Now on its own, pressing the trigger will make a single slashing sound. And we go around to the back, see a lot more detail. And then back here we can see the speaker, some openings to let the sounds from the Wonder Ride book play out. Battery compartment, and this actually comes with bun cell battery, so you just need to pull out the tab to turn it on. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a power switch. We have the reset button, and we have this little small detail here to where it's kind of got a design that's made to look like a turtle shell. Now, obviously, one of the big appealing points of this is the size. So, just to give an idea of how big it is, for a couple of comparisons, here it is next to the Full Ball Buster from Build. You're going to see they're about the same size. And then the Musou Saber Taiken mode from Kamen Rider Gaim, where you can basically see that, while it's a little bit hard to tell, the Taiken mode is just a little bit bigger. Though something that can't quite be conveyed just via video is the fact that this is actually quite light. And that probably has to do with the fact that there are these gaps in the blade. That's probably to keep material costs down so it won't cost all too much to sell. But it certainly does help to have a weapon like this that is both big but also light. Next, we'll use the Genbu Xinghua Wonder Ride book with the Dogouken Gekido to transform. So for the transformation, all you need to do is set in the Wonder Ride book and pull the trigger. When doing so, you want to make sure that you hook this part into the clip up here to make sure it goes in properly. And there we get the transformation into Kamen Rider Buster Genbu Xinghua. And so now we can see it open up to the Henshin page. We're going to get an image of Genbu, or Buster rather. You can see that, like with Saber, it picks the middle body as well as the right arm. You can see his visor here, you can see some of his armor, as well as a glowing right fist. Now, like this, pulling trigger again, will revert to the normal attacking sound. Closing back up the book and reopening it. Will just open it and play the normal attacking sound, though because of the way it opens, there is a chance that I activate the sound again. Next, for the special attack, we'll remove the Wonder Ride book, and like with putting in, you want to pull it out from the top rather than the bottom. Now to activate that, you want to take the Wonder Ride book with this part facing inwards, line up this with the rail here, then push inwards to activate it. That activates the special attack, the Kaishin no Gekido Randoku Geki, or Critical Gekido Random Reading, which is an odd translation, but that's the best I could get out of it. Now you can actually do this 2 more times to increase the power of the attack. And you can hear it added to the sound at the end, which is basically just increasing the power of the DOGOON, or the earth rumbling sound. And then we can scan it 3 times. Now, one thing that should be noted is that this does not have a actual chip reader like with the Seiken Sword Driver. But what's fun about this is that basically you can actually see how everything works just by examining these various orange buttons. So first of all, pulling the trigger pushes up on this button, which obviously hits this switch to open up the Wonder Ride book. And for this one, we have held down, that pushes up this switch once. This is what hits this button here, and essentially, with this held down, will activate the tele-announcement sound. And when this one is held down, that's what lets the electronics know that a one-write book is inserted. And this holds this up in place. Then we get to the actual reader segment. So obviously you can see that what would be used to activate the scanning sounds is just this little switch right here. And so that gets hit like that. And then what actually hits the button with the right timing to have it just activate the title announcement is this here right here, where this does hit the button, but then as you push it back, it gets to this point, and having this held down locks it in place. So really, it's a very simple way of working, but it does get the job done. Buster can also use other one-to-write books to form change, though the only one we've seen thus far is Jakkun to Domame no Ki. So for that one, the transformation is the same as with Genbu Xinghua. And then we have the transformation for Kamen Rider Buster Genbu Jakkun. Though as you hear, the only thing that changed was the one-to-write book announcement at the beginning, since this doesn't know which one-to-write book is inserted, so that transformation sequence goes nearly identical. Now like this, you can still scan one-to-write books with the reader. And the Jakkun book can be used to activate the reader as well. Lastly, the Genbu Xinghua one-to-write book can also be used with the Seiken sword driver. And what I'm going to do with this from here on in is, as I discovered with my kind of intro segments or in-between segments in my last view, is that I'm actually going to be having the belt straps attached to the sword driver to basically act as a counterbalance, because as you probably noticed in some of my first Saber reviews, opening up the books tended to cause the sword driver to kind of lean forward, especially when you have more than one book attached. Now, since Genbu Xinghua isn't associated with any of the Seiken that's tied to the sword driver, it's treated like a generic Wonder Rider book. But it does still announce Genbu and shows a white light to match up with the gray color. Additionally, we can then bring in Jakun Toto Mamenoki to get a bit of an idea of what Genbu Jakun actually looks like. And so there you get the sword driver version of the transformation into Genbu Jakun. And so we can see the images link up, though one thing to note is that when Buster uses the Jakun book, the shoulder pad here is actually replaced by his own shoulder pad, so it would look the same as this, but on the left arm. And then we activate some special attacks. And there we go. Overall, the Dogouken Gekido is an interesting contrast to the Seiken sword driver, where the sword driver's Seiken was very much a case of function over form, where it's definitely a lot smaller than it would be in the show, or really even in the proper scale, just because when the sword is drawn from the belt, it's bigger than when it's in the belt, but that can't be done with the toy. On the other hand, the Dogouken Gekido is more of a case of form over function, where it definitely has a much larger and more impressive size, and just for one last size comparison, here's how much bigger it is than the Kanken Rekka. However, the functionality is more on the simple side, seeing as it just uses some buttons and switches to activate different sounds, doesn't have too much variety of sound, and the real variety comes from using different Wonder Ride books with it. That being said, I wouldn't call that a bad thing. This is not one of the key riders, and even though he is the third rider to appear, he's more like the fourth rider in order of importance. And we'll see that, or you'll see what I mean a little bit later on down the line. That being said, the sounds that it does make are quite impressive. Definitely got a quite long and substantial transformation sequence. Plus, it is cool how using the Wonder Ride books to activate these special attacks does gradually increase the power of the attack, and you do hear slightly different attack sounds depending on how many times you scan the Wonder Ride book. So, overall, this is definitely an impressive collection piece, though not nearly as complex as the Seiken sword driver, but that makes sense seeing that it is the main belt we're talking about compared to what's more like a side weapon. But if you are a fan of Kamen Rider Buster, I can definitely recommend picking this up to add to your collection. Next time, I'll be reading the Deluxe Diago Speedy. So, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you're new and would like to see more, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. And for now, this is KRX50, writing off.